Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to this week's edition of Imperial as One's Belonging series. It's a series which explores the lived experiences of individuals from the Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities. Individuals who have shared their experiences of what it means to belong. And, you know, I say this every week, but every week I really do have very, very special guests. And this week we have, just waiting for it to come through, we have Titi Oliyide. And Titi is the young, um, I'm going to get it wrong. She is the Young Women's Engineer of the Year for the IET. And she's also a safety engineer for supercritical solutions. Titi, I'm going to let you explain what you do in a minute, but I'm going to say a big thank you for joining us. And I'm going to ask you the same questions which I ask each week, or the first question. Can you tell me what it was that gave you your sense of identity and sense of belonging when you were growing up?
Hi, Wayne. Thank you so much for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here. As you've mentioned, my name is Titilola, and I'm an alumna of Imperial College London as well. And I've been working since my graduation from Imperial. I've been working for the past, I'd say, 10 years now, um, in various safety roles as well. So, to answer your question, I'd say it's definitely my family and my faith that definitely gave me that sort of sense of belonging as I started to grow from when I was very little, from as far back as I can remember till
Hmm.
now. Those are basically the things that have given me that sense of belonging and sense of um, affinity or sense of identity since
Hmm.
I've been since as far back as I can remember. And that has been through different stages of life. So, being becoming moving growing up in Nigeria, going through different educational institutions, and then eventually moving to the UK for another educational program at Imperial College, and from there, working at various companies till I am here now. So yeah, that's
Right.
it.
So I'm gonna just hone in a little bit on your early childhood, and
Mhm,
you mentioned two things. You mentioned about your faith, and you also
mhm.
mentioned about your family. Can you give us any illustrations of what it was that your family instilled in you? What were the value systems that your family instilled in you for that gave you the sense of this is who we are. This is who I am. This is who I'm a part of. This is where I belong.
So I'll definitely say it's a mixture of three things. So that sense of being equal, that sense of being excellent at whatever you do, and also the opportunity to explore and be feed your curiosity. I mean, within reason, of course.
Hmm.
But yeah, eventually, so I'll expand a bit on that. So equality, I would say, grew up in a family of three girls. So I've got two elder sisters,
Hmm.
and just the way that my parents sort of, went about caring for us and raising us, and even within and they themselves as well, because they practically raised me as well since I'm the youngest, and there's a bit of an age gap between us. But yeah, definitely I would say that sense of equality. Even though I was the youngest in the family, I never felt like I couldn't have my
Your voice heard.
voice heard, or
Yeah.
my opinions expressed as well. So I'll definitely say that really helped me growing up and gave me that sense of what, I deserve to be here as well. I never felt like I didn't deserve to be in a particular space. The other thing I would say is excellence. So my parents always told us to be excellent at whatever we do, and trying to make sure that we could do the best we can, no matter what we have in no matter where we find ourselves. And, I think this is also one of the things that informed my coming to Imperial College as well, because when I thought to myself, okay, what do I want to do for my postgraduate degree after my undergraduate degree in Nigeria? I thought to myself, okay, which are the best schools that do that offer chemical engineering? And Imperial was, the best school that offered me an admission. So definitely that's also part of what, has informed my of the family values that informed. And the last bit I talked about was curiosity. So that definitely informed my choice of engineering as well, because growing up, I was very curious about things, how things worked, how things were transformed. And that's how I got into chemical engineering itself. And my family really fanned those flames basically, and, made sure that I didn't feel stifled in any way.
So from what you've said, it sounds as though your parents, your siblings, your family were just encouraged. They constantly encourage you. It was almost not limitless, but there was no limitations for you. Is that how it was?
Yes, I'll definitely say to a large extent that's
Mhm.
it. They always, encouraged within reason, I guess. Of course, if it's a great initiative, or if it's something that you enjoy, that made sense, they would definitely, help you in terms of or help me rather to make sure that I've thought about covered all the bases. But in terms of, actually understanding or following my dreams, as long as it wasn't hurting anybody. It's just, definitely, they are very, very supportive of it. Yeah.
Fantastic. So it sounds to me your sisters were kind of like partly role models for you in terms of expectations. Did you have what got you into the idea of doing chemical engineering? Because you've mentioned that's what you um pursued, but
Yes.
what role models did you have for that? Or it, yeah.
Yeah. So growing up, I enjoyed mathematics a lot. And so kind of like in a Nigerian household, if you enjoy mathematics a lot, you're kind of either, accounting or engineering. And my mom's an accountant. But yeah, the other bits of accounting in terms of, credit and debit was a bit shaky for me. So it was like, okay, fine, maybe it will be something along the lines of, and I was very good in sciences as well. So it was like, okay, maybe it sounded like engineering would be great, even though initially I wanted to, just because I loved math, and I thought, okay, I would love to teach it. And then it's like, oh, okay, why don't you try and study um engineering? And my uncle was an engineer as well. Um, so I had quite a few people in my family and in my space that sort of, had studied engineering, but nobody in particular that studied chemical engineering. So how I actually got into chemical engineering was when I was ready to get into undergrad, and I knew the school I was going to in Nigeria, or I would love to go to in Nigeria. And a friend, my sister's friend, was actually studying electrical engineering at the time, and I was thinking of electrical engineering. But then she said to me, "Okay, you could do electrical engineering, but there's also chemical engineering." And for me, it kind of made sense to do chemical engineering because, well, first of all, she told me that chemical engineering was not all about chemistry, which is, I think, which is a thing that quite a few people don't know. So I was lucky to get into it knowing that from the start already. And yeah, so she was able to sort of give me that better understanding of chemical engineering versus electrical engineering, and those ended up being my first and second choice, and I got in for my first choice. So that's kind of how I got into chemical engineering, which I absolutely enjoyed.
So it was almost serendipity. It was kind of like it was it because so did you enjoy chemistry? I know you said that it's not really that linked to chemistry, but
Yes.
but but there must have been something else which was kind of like saying, yeah, I like engineering, but to
Mhm,
go down the route of chemical engineering. Explain then
mhm.
what chemical engineering is if it's not about chemistry, as it were.
So, I mean, it's not entirely about chemistry. I would say it's definitely more about mathematics, physics, and then a bit of chemistry. So, if you were to rank the the sort of the proportions, I would say, of chemistry, of subjects within chemical engineering. So chemical engineering is basically about, how you transform products, raw materials into finished products. And for me, it kind of made sense. Again, I always pull think back to when I was really young as well. I would love to understand how, you would say, for example, you like different ways in which different cooking methods could affect a particular raw material. So you would fry an egg and it would turn out, a certain way, but then if you boiled it, it would turn out a different way, starting from the same um, raw material, but depending on the process in which you got to the finished product. So for me, understanding that, you could then do those kind of things with chemical engineering was very interesting and very, it just showed me the breadth of what chemical engineering is about as well, which I quite enjoy because, even within that, I've sort of been able to use in my in the short space of my career already, I've been able to use that in the various ways. So quite enjoyed, and yeah, I think it's been a good decision.
Okay, so there's the young you now embarking on a career in or embarking on studying chemical engineering at
Mhm.
university. Um, what did you envisage yourself doing with chemical engineering though? What was where did you see it going? With accountancy, I could clearly see a path, but for chemical engineering, where did you see yourself?
So that's a very interesting question because I'll say definitely within Nigeria. So Nigeria is an oil producing country.
Hmm.
So within that, kind of felt like, the best and most profitable, I would say, way would be to work with an oil company. So that was definitely a, an option
Hmm.
that it had. But as I mentioned, chemical engineering has a wide range of applications. So for me, I knew that okay, I could do different things. I could, maybe even set up my own business. Creating a with a process and creating some things from finished products. There's lots of things that I had in mind. So I wouldn't say I had set a specific set, but definitely I think the most visual thing was that quite a few people got jobs with based on chemical engineering degrees, got jobs with oil and gas companies. Obviously now we know that there's the energy transition ongoing as well. So that's something that I think I'm still following in that path as I am now in that space as well. So trying to I'm very passionate about the energy transition space and low carbon fuels as well, and that's how I'm also I'm able to use chemical engineering within that space right now.
Fantastic. So I'm going to ask another couple of questions which are
Yeah.
related a little bit to chemical engineering, but also in terms of um, what it was or what it is that's helped you being a woman in chemical engineering or engineering. Oftentimes people think that it's not a woman's role as if you know what I mean. So
Mhm.
how have you found it being a woman working in the engineering sector?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think so far it's been okay. I'll definitely say, there have been some challenges in terms of you can see the challenges in the, I guess, system, really. But yeah, I've heard of different stories, people being maybe harassed or as you say, point blank being told that they don't belong here as well, which is a bit sad to be honest, because I always say that engineering products are all around us. So everything, like literally from when we wake up to when we go to bed, we are interacting with one product of engineering or the other. And so to then think that, pretty much 50% of the population should not be involved in a particular profession is, I don't know, just doesn't make any sense to me. And you need that input from female engineers. We need the input from women, even as female engineers, to make sure that we are actually producing goods that or producing things, goods and services that help and and facilitate the lives of both men and women. I think that that's so important. So yeah, definitely it's got its challenges. And I know, even with there's recent stats as well from the Engineering UK that talked about, quite a few women, I think about 38,000 women leaving the engineering industry between 2022 and 2023, which is, not great as well, because that's, I think right now we're about 16.5% of women in engineering, or we were at that, and then it's gone down to 15.7, which is, not where we should be going. We should be going higher and higher. Yeah, but there's lots of things that people are doing, different organizations. So for example, the IET as well, which is the award I won last year, which is the Young Woman Engineer of the Year award. It's what it does is to showcase the talents of female engineers, and to try to break down those stereotypes that people think that engineers look a certain way. A lot of times when we think about engineers, we think about, maybe hard hats and, greasy overalls. And that is why, some people might have that tendency to think that female women are not welcomed, or it's sometimes it's even from not welcome in the profession, and sometimes it's from a place of, I would say, caring for women, in the sense that,
Mhm.
don't think that they can take the rigors of the job. But I don't think that's not right, because engineers are we need all types of skills for engineering. And yes, some of those could be more physical, more based, could have a higher proportion of it based on, your physical strength, but also, sometimes it's about your mental strength, your mental capabilities, which I believe are, cut across both men and women, and are spread equally both men and women. So I think that's very important as well.
That's a really good answer. Really, really um good to hear that. I was just
Mhm.
wondering with regards to then you mentioned about the awards. I'm going to come
Yes.
back to that, right? I'm going to come back to the awards because you also mentioned about the fact earlier on that you made that transition from Nigeria to the
Mhm.
UK. So
Mhm.
why was that? Because especially when you were just saying about in Nigeria, you've got the oil fields, and so why transition from Nigeria where you have lots of opportunities across to the UK? And how was that transition for you?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, actually. So for me, it was more about so I'd grown up in Nigeria, right? And all my education had been in Nigeria. And so for me, and also I guess for my parents as well, they kind of
Mhm.
thought that um, having a degree, an internationally recognized degree as well, would be great, which was why I applied to quite a few of the high-ranking chemical engineering degrees in the world. So I wanted to sort of have that globally recognized um, degree as well. And for me, I think, it's also quite important to have cross understanding across, various continents. And so for me, I also, I appreciate the opportunity to also work across different continents as well, understand different cultures, understand what, applies to each culture, how engineering is practiced across board as well, and being able to then take that information and, use it use it across to improve the engineering solutions we have across as well. So I think that that's really important, and that was really what drove my that was basically the drive behind me wanting to have a postgraduate degree at Imperial as well.
So it was about exposure. You wanted different
Yeah, pretty
exposure, a
much.
different experience to what you had already had in
Exactly.
Nigeria. And so you again, it's interesting because earlier on you said about your family telling you to strive for excellence.
Yes,
Yeah. And so
exactly.
the places which you picked were places which you deemed as being excellent. Yeah.
Yes,
So I'm
exactly.
thankful that you came to Imperial anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So, but alongside that, then, what was it? What was your experience then when you did come to the UK, especially having come from Nigeria? How was that for you?
So yeah, it was definitely a different experience. I would say one thing that really helped was the fact that I studied something that I studied before. So I studied advanced chemical engineering at Imperial.
Hmm.
So not to say it was definitely not a walk in the park, but I definitely agree that I definitely appreciate the fact that it was not an entirely new subject for me.
Hmm.
So that was one. I also had quite a few family members here already, so that helped with my transition as well. So I had my sister and my uncle here, and so it was very they helped me to settle in quite quickly. But there was still some differences. So it was when I moved to the UK that I understood that I was a Black woman. So in Nigeria, I was just a woman amongst men and women. And yeah, but then when I moved here, I was like, oh, right, okay, there's an additional sort of characteristic to me that, I started to understand. And I'll definitely say that helped that on having that understanding or having that realization. Maybe within Imperial, I didn't quite feel it until I started looking for jobs. And then it was a case of, you're looking for jobs and then you have to, find out exactly how to meet the criteria and understanding the potential additional barriers towards, getting jobs, perhaps, from your name or from the work authorization that you needed to have as well. So things like that were things that, I started to understand. But otherwise, apart from those things, it was quite a smooth and easy transition for me. Of course, also understanding and speaking English from Nigeria was a better. It was made it easy for me to transition. And to be fair, that was one of the things I thought about as well when thinking about where to pursue this global exposure that I was looking for.
Hmm. So you came to England, you came to Imperial.
Yes.
It's really it's really interesting. It's something which I often hear when people from the Caribbean or from
Mm-hmm.
Africa, when they come and they said it was the first time I realized I wasn't just a woman or I wasn't just a man, but I was also a black I was a black person, and that had an
Mm-hmm.
impact on the way I was seen. But there was something which you also mentioned about the application process,
Mm-hmm.
whereby um, the fact that you have to fill in your status, i.e.,
Yes.
are you registered to work in this country,
Yeah.
etc., which is another form of sifting, as it were.
Pretty
Yeah,
much. Yeah.
yeah. So how was that for you? How was that process? Did it did it how did that make you feel? Is the
um. So it made me feel. I think at first it kind of made me feel, oh, am I not good enough to get a job here? Because bearing in mind that I also, before I moved to the UK, after my undergrad, we have this thing in Nigeria, National Youth Service.
Mhm,
And I had after that, so I finished that off, and then after that, based on the internship I did in Nigeria, I actually got a full-time job with one of the oil companies in Nigeria. So it was either a case of go for this job or go for a master's degree. And then I thought, I thought about it, prayed about it, and I came to the conclusion that I should potentially, pursue my postgraduate degree as opposed to the job. So bearing in mind that I'd actually left the job to move to the UK, and then getting to the UK, and then it's a case of I would, sometimes I would get so many rejections, and it started to make me feel like, okay, I am good enough because clearly I got a job, with an international company in Nigeria before leaving. And I've come here to improve myself. So I've got an even better degree. So why am I not getting a job here?
mm,
But as you say, I had to sort of recalibrate my mind and be like, okay, it's because quite a few of these companies don't, maybe they don't offer visas, so they would reject you from the get-go. And yeah, it wasn't it wasn't cute at all. But I think understanding that helped me to sort of push through and become more resilient around that, and then start to re-strategize in terms of, okay, what other jobs can I look out for? Because bearing in mind that these companies as well they have their own, in a way, I'm not saying it's right, but they also have their own um, factors that they're taking into consideration. So, for example, some of them would rather get employ people that don't need the work visa as opposed to those that do need the work visa. So yeah, so in that case, not necessarily that I wasn't as good as them, but I just didn't have what they needed
Yeah.
to progress that. So I think understanding that helped me to push through, and then try and re-strategize, see how best to get or see which companies to apply to. So at some point, I'll go for some career fairs within Imperial, that Imperial organized. And, the first question I'll be like, when I'm talking to a company, first question I'll be like, is okay, do you guys, would you be able to facilitate the work authorization? And then if they said no, I'll be like, okay, thank you. Moving on to the next, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So helping me to ensure that I use my energies, or I employed my energy in the right place as well. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. There was two things I was going to ask
Yeah.
relating to that, was about what support mechanism did you have around you at that time, and off the top of your head, roughly how many applications did you have to make or before you secured a job?
Yeah, so I'll definitely say it was maybe about 100
Oh my,
applications. So
wow.
definitely, I mean, at some point I just started, because most of the time I would then say, okay, if they don't require, um, uh, if they do require a work visa, I wouldn't bother applying. But there were some I was like, oh, maybe just in case they might see how awesome I am, and then make an exception for me. So yeah, there was that as well. But to your first question about support mechanisms, I think having a community of friends. So I had quite a few friends in my master's degree year that were absolutely amazing. So we would apply for jobs together, we would prepare together, and all of that, and then we would share opportunities as well. And my sister and her husband as well, that and my brother-in-law, that were here, they had moved here beforehand, and they sort of had that um on
Understanding.
understanding of how
Hmm.
the job market is here as well. They
Hmm.
they were quite helpful in giving me tips on how to navigate that as well. So yeah,
Hmm.
I'll definitely say having those people around, so both my fellow classmates as well, and as well as my family, really helped to um yeah, give that to help me navigate that.
Yeah.
I'll definitely say, in terms of also preparation and all, there were quite a few programs that Imperial had as well that helped, to facilitate that process as well.
Fantastic. Okay. So there's a couple of things which, just as you mentioned just at the start of when you were telling us about coming to the UK, that you
Mhm.
also, one, that you had secured a job, but two, that you'd also done youth service. Is it youth
Mhm.
service? What,
Yes.
what, what did you learn from that youth service about yourself?
So yeah, that was an interesting time. I think the first thing I learned was good thing I didn't eventually become a teacher. I mean, I love to teach, but yeah, at least I guess maybe not, especially for a secondary school, because I taught for a year in a
Yeah.
secondary school.
Mhm.
It was quite interesting, and understanding how they and the students had like lots of questions. They had lots of questions about, how and I was glad to give them that insight into the reason why they were studying what they were studying. So I taught maths and chemistry, and yeah, I think for some of them it was quite abstract. But one thing I tried to do as as a supply teacher, I would say, which was what was the role I had, was to make sure that I gave them that insight, that industry view on why what they were why what they were learning was important as well. So I think that was really good. But it also showed me how much how I could adapt myself to different situations as well. But yeah, it was a very interesting experience for a year. And there was that, also bits on resilience and all that we learned from the paramilitary training that we do for about 3 weeks as well.
Wow. Okay. So there's it's multifaceted. There's lots
Yeah,
of things that got into you. So
yeah,
I'm gonna say okay. So now you secured yourself a job,
yeah.
right, in the UK. What is your job role, and how did that job role i- influence you getting the award which you mentioned earlier on?
Yeah, so I got my first job. It was very interesting actually. I got my first job. I think I applied for it on the day it was supposed to the
The
deadline day. I was
deadline.
like, oh yeah, you know what, I'll just apply because by that time I was just like, oh whatever. I just keep applying and keep getting rejection. Might as well just apply. So I applied and then they called me up for an interview. I did the interview and I think just before I got my I think just after my exams, then going into the dissertation part of my program, I then got a call to say, oh, they enjoyed talking to me at the interview and they would like to offer me a role. I was like, oh wow, okay, thank you. So yeah, that was that helped me and made me have like a really good summer as well. But then I think so then I started off the job and it was really good actually because I had a I had one of my friends that I had reconnected with in Imperial. She had gone to we had gone to the same secondary, we had attended the same secondary school, and then we're supposed to start the job at the same time. So we started off so they employed us and we started off on the same day. So it was good to have her start off the job with me. And I'd also done a bit of stalking on LinkedIn, and I'd seen that one of the people that currently that worked in the company at the time as well was within my circles. It was one of my friends as well. So yeah, I knew that I had at least two people that I would know in the company. But yeah, I think with that it was a safety reliability safety and reliability engineer role, and that was in the oil and gas industry as well. So it was still within my path in terms of
Mhm.
being able to work in the energy industry as well. And yeah, I got the opportunity to work on really big projects, and even got the opportunity to work in Abu Dhabi for a few months, and working with operators as well. So that was a really good experience. And I believe that's also when I got in touch with the Association for Black and Minority Engineers in the UK. And for me, that then started to give me a better understanding of the engineering industry as a whole, and what are the challenges that again, now understanding that I am a Black female engineer in the UK, understanding how that would affect my experiences, and started getting involved in different things that the different initiatives that they organize. I think one of the things that I definitely point to, or one of the cogent things I can point to within that was getting involved as a mock interviewer in one of the events. So it's called a transition event, and that basically helps students prepare for the world of work. So one of the things is mock interviews in such a way that we help the students prepare for mock interviews such that when they do get to a real interview stage, they have made all the mistakes with the mock interviewer so they can have a better outcome as well.
Yeah.
And for me, being a mock interviewer, that was the first time that I then understood that, okay, this is how, when I do certain things in an interview, this is how I come across. So I was on the other side of it. And so I think that having that experience really helped me to improve my own interview skills as well, because sometimes you don't know until you're doing until you see you come outside of yourself and you see certain things that you're doing. And I think that experience really helped me to improve the way I come across in interviews as well. So yeah, so things like that helped me to just getting involved in different initiatives with the AFB helps me to also um, improve myself outside of my work and do quite a few things that I would not necessarily have had the opportunity to do at my workplace, especially at that level. So even taking, for example, being an interviewer, you don't generally get that opportunity to be an interviewer until maybe you're a hiring manager, until you're more senior. But I was, I have that opportunity and privilege to do that, 1 or 2 years into my career. And I think that really helped me as well. So those are just the few things I would say, helped me, gave me opportunities that I could then sort of point to, and, even opportunities for me to impact, to give impact that then, helped me in terms of winning this award.
Fantastic. So just you've kind of given me an idea of some of the aspects of the award, but without really
Mhm,
telling me about the award, right? Because you've mentioned about joining with the AFMBE, and
mhm,
I know it's an amazing organization, and they do
mhm,
some great stuff. And I really do appreciate the idea of providing the necessary training platform in interview
mhm,
scenarios and other things. But
mhm.
for the award, what was it like? What were you given the award for? Was it just for that, or what was it for other things which you've done?
Yes, so the award is for to recognize the IET Young Women Engineer Award is to recognize female engineers that are doing like great work within the engineering sector. So both in terms of leadership, in terms of um, promoting diversity and inclusion within the engineering industry as well, and just working, making impactful progress, or providing impact within the engineering industry as well. So it's a mixture of both your technical excellence and the work that you do over and beyond your job as well.
Mhm,
So for me, that having that opportunity to work on really impactful projects, so billion-dollar oil and gas projects. I also had the opportunity to work on Crossrail in my previous role as well. So the Elizabeth Line construction project as well. So having that opportunity to work on those different types of projects, impactful projects, helped me to showcase my technical excellence. And as you say, my work with other institutions, organizations rather, such as the AFB and other organizations, also helped me to show how I, promote engineering and promote STEM as well to the younger generation.
So I'm going to ask a couple more questions just
Yeah.
related to this, right? Because I know sometimes people get, did you know that you had been nominated for the award? And how did that feel that people had recognized what you've done and said, you know what, let's put you forward.
Yeah, so I actually had to write stuff for the award, so I knew I
Okay.
was I was going to be nominated. However, I think it sort of started off with people saying, "Oh, I think you'd be great for this award. I think you'd be great for this award." And I was like, yeah. I mean, I know that I'm doing stuff, but it took a bit of getting used to and getting to that stage, right? And then I think even in terms of another thing that I would say, that process did for me was to help me understand and own the impact of what I've done. I think, I'd sort of had that thing of, oh, yeah, I'm doing work and, I can see the impact. And I love it when people, tell me that, oh, I'm on the Elizabeth line and I remembered you because I know
Hmm.
you worked on it, stuff like that. But I think, understanding how to communicate the impact of what I had done was, something that I learned through that process as well.
Hmm.
But yeah, I definitely, it was definitely a journey. It wasn't just one day that I thought, oh, you know what, I'm so great and I'm gonna get into this award. But yeah, I really I'm appreciative of how I've gone through that process as well.
So on the day, I'm just going to take you back to the day last December, because you get shortlisted and everything like
Yes.
that, right? Did you think you had a chance? Did you think, because there was, I don't know, there was what, 5 or 6 of you?
Yes, yes. There were 5 of us. Yeah, 5 of us. Yes. No, sorry, 4 of us. Four of
All
us
right,
for two awards. Yeah.
right. So did so you're down to the last 4, and a
Yes.
50-50 chance of getting something, right? How was that for you? One, when they mentioned your name as the winner, what did that feel like for you?
Yeah, so that was really interesting, and there's a video on YouTube as well that I guess people can go look out for as well. But yeah, so as you say, it was so there were actually 6 of us, but then the four for the categories. So there were two apprentices, so for people with a bit less experience,
Mhm.
and then but for that what's it called, for those categories there were two awards and then four of us. And yeah, to be to be honest with you, they announced the first award, and it was, another lady that also, amazing engineer that also does work with AFB UK as well. And yeah, so when they when they announced her, I was like, okay, cool. Like, I mean, even prior to that, on the day, I was just like, I'm just so grateful to be here. It'd be really, really great to win the award. But I just sort of thought, I just, hedge my bets and all of that. But then anyway, when they and then when they announced the other lady, I thought, okay, yeah, probably not going to be me again, and that would get the award. So, and then they have the whole they sort of give you a bit of a drum roll moment, and they try to elongate the process. I was just like, probably not going to get it. And then I hear my name and I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, oh wow, I actually did that. I was like, so grateful to God, and just the opportunity. And yeah, I thought, wow, okay.
Yeah.
I actually did get it. And I think I was actually very, very surprised. So there's a picture, and I think part of the video is all of me covering my mouth because I was like, oh no, this is like so good to be true. And I remember talking to a friend of mine before the award, and we had been talking, and we've been talking about how you shouldn't, like, some people cry when they're like in various in really, really emotional scenarios or situations. And I said to myself, okay, I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. But yeah, it was really, really, really emotional for me. I thought, wow, okay, this actually happened. And yeah, even up till now, like sometimes I just wake up and I'm just like, oh, that actually happened. Like, wow. Yeah, but it was really, really good.
No, no, it's wonderful. The recognition of the work which you're doing. It's always, I think it's sometimes we get very humble about the
Mm,
achievements which we make, but you know what? It's always good to celebrate.
yes.
It's because of the work which you've done.
Yes.
We're not having fake awards ceremonies. It's because of the work, because of the impact, and as you said, you need to own the impact
Mm-hmm.
for your work, yeah, for the
Mm-hmm.
work which you're doing, and that is a beautiful thing.
Yes.
So I suppose one of the things I'm thinking, based off that, what encouragement would you give to other people about kind of like applying for awards, or has there been any benefits, other benefits, do you think, having got that award?
Yeah, so for me, I think, I mean, I like to separate this into both internal and external, right? So for
Mhm.
me, a lot of times, as you mentioned, owning that impact is really, really important. And even through that process, I think it's helped me to understand better why I do what I do. But then having this award has also been a great form of validation for me, or additional form of validation for me to be able to, kick imposter syndrome
Mhm.
away when it does come through, because I think it always comes through. And when people talk about imposter syndrome, sometimes we think about it as a bit of a bad thing, but I think it's also very important to it's a very important thing, just like fear, right? So fear keeps us from doing things that are not necessarily, that might be harmful to us, but then when it keeps us from doing things that would also would also push us out of our comfort zone, then we need to push past that, right? So I think that's
Mhm.
the same thing for imposter syndrome. So sometimes imposter syndrome will also make will also ensure that a graduate, for example, does not go apply for a CEO role, because clearly there's a bit of an experience gap there. But but there's also that opportunity. Sometimes imposter syndrome um prevents us from going for bigger things. So that's helped me. Sometimes I'd say to myself, oh, you're not giving yourself enough credit, and then clearly I have things that I can point to. I think also what the award has done for me is, externally, is to also help me um realize that there are people that can actually relate to my story.
Hmm.
and can then and how I can better help them as well.
Hmm.
So it's been interesting helping like people that can relate to something that I say, and I'm just like, okay, I thought I went through that. I mean, clearly I went through that, and sometimes maybe I didn't even realize how much I've grown through that process. For example, the resilience of going through, applying for 100 jobs, but then still
Yeah.
getting one, and then being able to build my career from there as well. It's something that clearly quite a few people can relate to.
Mm.
And I never knew that that's something that would inspire others as well. And I think in other aspects as well, being able to just generally inspire others, because I know that for me, to part of the reason why I've been able to get here as well is because I've been able to see some people do things, and I've thought, okay, if they can do that, then I can also aspire to things like that. So
Mhm.
it's there are quite a few people that have given me, as I say, vision of possibilities. So that helps me to also see that I can also be that for some people, and it's very humbling, and it's something that I don't take lightly at all.
Fantastic. You know what? I'm just looking at the time. So I'm going to go to our final two questions. I don't know if anyone in the audience had any questions. If they do, just put your hand up. Otherwise, I'm going to hit my final two questions, right? And they are kind of like the same question, but asked in slightly different ways. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so the first part of the question is, what advice would you have given to your younger self? Okay, that's the first one. And then the second one would be, what do you think your younger self would look at you now and say, wow? Okay.
Yeah. So advice to my younger self, I would definitely say it's two parts.
Hmm.
So one would be, don't worry, everything will turn out fine. It always does,
Hmm.
by God's grace. So yeah, I mean, definitely. I know there are quite a few things that I look back and I was so worried about, and I'm just like, 10 years later, or 5 years later, doesn't really make much of a difference,
Hmm.
that sort of thing. So yeah, I'll definitely say, that's it. And the second thing would be just just do it. Like, don't be like, just do it. Take all the opportunities you have as they come, and it would all work out fine. So I think it's two parts to that too. Yeah, because sometimes it might feel a bit like, oh, you have a certain, especially when you have a a vision or a set path in your mind, and then you kind of have to maybe take some curves and and detours away from it to be able to get to where. So when you're on those detours, sometimes you might think, oh, am I still going to reach my goal? But then yeah, it always works out in the end. So definitely that would be one thing I would. Those would be the two things I would say. And I think in terms of what my younger self will look back, or look at now and think, oh wow, I think it's definitely this award.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, I always knew that I wanted to be excellent at the work that I do, and I think understanding or seeing winning awards in school was, easy for me to visualize, because yes, I did win some awards while I was in school, and throughout my schooling life, right? But I think winning awards in the workplace is, a new level for me,
Hmm.
that I never really, I guess, visualized. So yeah, I think that would definitely be that. And yeah, hopefully more things to come. Because yeah, I'll continue striving, and to be excellent and be good at what I'm doing, and also make impact as well. So yeah, hopefully this will not be the only thing that my younger self will look back at. But I think for now, this is one thing that I would definitely say really stands out in that sense.
Fantastic. It's been a real, real pleasure hearing your conversation, having this conversation with you. Your smile
Yes.
has just been irradiating us throughout the whole of the conversation. It's beautiful, right? Um, I want to wish you all the very best as an Imperial graduate, but as a chemical engineer, just keep doing what you're doing, because whatever you're doing is really valuable, and we need more of that. Yeah. I really do like the quote which you said, which was, own the impact of your work. Own,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that that's that's excellent, demonstrating the excellence that you need, you know. So I really love that. Um, so I'm going to just let people know what's happening next week, but say another big thank you for being our
You
guest
so
this
much.
week. All right.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it as well, and I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being a
Thank you.
great conversation
No, thank
as
you.
well.
Okay, so for next week, we're going to have Professor Sandhya um, Visweswari, and she's a scientist academic at the Indian Institute for Science in Bangalore in India, but she's also one of the provost visiting professors of chemistry at Imperial College. So she's going to be our guest next week between 12:30 and 1:30. And if you have missed any of the conversations or the interviews before, please go to our YouTube channel, which is tinyurl.com/belonging dash IAO. And the other interviews are all there ready for you to watch. All I want to say is, you know, it's such a privilege to be able to hear and share the wonderful stories of so many people as they have told us about what are the important factors in helping them to gain their sense of identity and their sense of belonging. So keep thinking about it, keep doing it, keep owning your, I'm going to say it, own the impact of your work, because that helps you to gain your own sense of identity and belonging. So until next week, and until next time, thank you very much, and I will see you all very, very soon.